Rev up your engine! Today I'm going to show you the newly redesigned Acura MDX. Why waste your money on a Mercedes-Benz SUV when you get just about everything that's on them in a Japanese car that doesn't break down and costs about 1/3 of what the Mercedes costs? Now, if you watch my video on the Mercedes SUV, how the guy hated it and he paid $150,000, $60,000 for the thing and it kept recalling it and the mirror whistled. Well, the only similarity between this and a Mercedes is they're both built in the United States. Granted, the Mercedes, it was made in Alabama, didn't have such great quality control. This one's made by Honda Motor Company, they own Acura, and they are insanely built. Realize, Honda and Acura have built millions and millions of cars in Ohio and in other parts of the United States. They know what they're doing. I, of course, like the Japanese-made ones, but really, you know, the engine comes from Japan, the transmission, all that stuff. But what makes this an interesting car is, if you know anything about cars, for a while, people weren't buying these. They saw them as too old stodgy. They were buying a Lexus with all the fancy stuff. Nothing wrong with a Lexus, but they decided they're going to compete. And they've made a really interesting vehicle, as you're going to see. Now, with prices as insane as they are, the guy paid around $60,000 for the car. But what a car you get for $60,000. Now, this thing has the Honda Vectoring all-wheel drive system. You'll see when you drive it. It handles ice, snow, you name it. It's made for driving. Now, the first thing you'll notice is it's an SUV, but it's relatively low to the ground. They deliberately made it that way. So when you add an all-wheel drive system with a torque vectoring and the fact that it's lower, this thing handles infinitely better than, say, the Lexus SUVs. I've tried them both. This is much better. This is an actual 3-row car. The problem with some of the Lexuses, they got 3 rows and there's no room in the back. Their head's kind of stuck behind a pillar. This is completely different. Watch this. You don't even have to grab it with your hand. Check it out. It opens itself up to get to the 3rd row of seats. And as you can see, there's a reasonable amount of space in there. Plus, if you're one of those fanatics about moonroofs, which I think are kind of stupid, but people like them, you can have big moonroofs. So if you want to open it up and scream and yell at people in YouTube videos, feel free. I like it because it has actual chrome. Now, when we open it up, this is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This one's dirty now, but that's because they've got this down. Well, if you want to be clean, you just flip it upside down and then
it's dirtier.
Yeah, it's dirtier on that side, but when you vacuum it all, it's all clean inside. You got them all kinds of space when you put them down. Oh, you got to move that seat up a little further to get down, but you get the idea. You can carry a lot of stuff, and when you move those seats down, you can bring a baby elephant if you want. Now, the one downside of this car is what's under the hood. It's luxury, so there's no proper, there's hydraulics. And it's an excellent engine, but it's got one problem. Now, it's a very reliable, very powerful engine, but at the same time, it's a pretty big vehicle, even though it's lowered. You don't buy one of these to get gas mileage. Don't even think about it. His mother gets 17 miles a gallon. He got 13 driving over here in sport mode, so don't expect gas mileage on this thing. That's not what it's about. Oh, look, the faux carbon fiber. Well, what do people use carbon fiber for? Weighs less, right? Well, the weight reduction obviously didn't work out too well if he's getting 13 miles a gallon in that thing. And I gotta say, Honda's still living in the past. 2022. Look at it, it's still got a timing belt, a rubber timing belt. Man, I'm never gonna wise up and put timing chains on these things. I truthfully think Honda will not on their V6s, because like everybody else, they're all going into electric cars and hybrid electric cars. Take my son's year-old Toyota Sienna hybrid. It doesn't have the Toyota Sienna V6 engine. It's got the 4-cylinder engine with the hybrid. And they'll probably end up doing the same thing. They won't have a V6 hybrid. They would make a 4-cylinder. And the Honda 4-cylinder engines, they've had timing chains for ages in them too. They just, I guess, don't want to go through the R&D and change everything just for a belt versus a chain. And who knows, maybe they have this Asian idea that we'll make a lot of money changing the timing belts, or if they break, then the engines will go. And we'll sell them an expensive engine, or even better, we'll sell them another car. But be that as it may, they run fine. you just got to change it every 100,000 miles. And when you get the bill for that, you kind of wonder why they didn't put a chain in the first place. After all, it is a $60,000 car. Now, here's a really interesting thing. It has a 10-speed marvelous transmission that Honda makes, and they tout it as having all kinds of power and efficiency. But I gotta disagree on the efficiency. I mean, if he's getting 13 miles a gallon, his mother, very conservative, is getting 17. It's not all that efficient, because if you remember a couple of years ago, I was in one of those giant Ford Expeditions, and it had a 10-speed Ford transmission in it, the one that GM and Ford made together, and then they split apart like cats and dogs fighting, right? But I got like 27 miles a gallon in that thing, and that was a huge Expedition. So I gotta say, the power, yes. Gas mileage, no. Now, if you notice, it's got a classic, nice, smooth hood. They don't have any bumps sticking out. So check this out. The air intake is built on the bottom side, comes through here, and then goes into the engine this way. It's pretty interesting. You can see there is a tremendous amount of working room on this thing. But then again, it's a Honda. You may never have to work on the thing. But still, much to my happiness, the beauty cover is pretty small. You know, you get to see the engine. This I don't mind at all, because of course you got all kinds of stuff inside here for sucking the air in and filtering stuff, and I don't mind that at all. It's not covering up the nice part of the engine that you can see. Let's look inside. It's just like that Bronco. It's got all kinds of pictures and sounds. It's got the wireless charging pan. Oh, look, we're like on fighter jet air. Fire 1, fire 2. It also has a brake hold, which is pretty handy. Automatic start stop there. And yes, you can turn it off. I advise turning it off. If an engine keeps turning itself on and off, 90-something% of your wear occurs on startup, so you keep wearing your engine out. Not a good idea to use it. And hey, his mother doesn't turn it off, and it still only gets 17 miles a gallon with a conservative driver. So really, so much for the automatic start stop. I think it's a bunch of crap. Hand stitched leather. This, to me, is a much higher quality car than the Mercedes that costs 3 times as much. Look, it's got the 360. There's a matrix. You can get different views. I mean, this thing is really tricked out. And unlike the Mercedes, none of it's broken yet. Now we have air conditioning, heated seats, both sides. If you want to pay a little extra, you get the massaging seat. I find it kind of weird. I tried one when I was driving, and it really kind of distracts you from the road. So I don't advise buying that feature unless you want to park and use it. It's kind of weird while you're driving. And of course, you got all these dynamic modes. You put it in snow. It's in the snow, comfort, normal. And of course, he drives all the time in sport. Then you can customize it for yourself if you want. It's got lane control, automatic cruise control, watches in front of you. It's a pretty much technological marvel. But let's see how it goes. I wonder what this donut flying in the air is. That's the speedometer. It's got a heads-up panel too, so you don't have to look off the road to see how fast you're going. And watch, when you put it in reverse, look, the mirrors do. They tilt down so you see behind better. And if you, or perhaps your wife, has a tendency of hitting curbs, well, it's kind of hard to get a curb when you got a picture of the tire and you can see exactly where you're sitting. They have no one to blame but yourself for hitting the curb. Oh, I didn't see it. Let's see how this thing goes. It really goes. Makes a nice sound too. And this is a normally aspirated engine. This isn't a turbo. I can see why they think it's 13 miles a gallon though. Quite an impressive ride, I must say. Aside from the bad gas mileage, hey, it's everything anybody's gonna want in a vehicle like this. For what it is, if you don't mind the bad gas mileage, it's certainly an excellent vehicle. He bought it for his mother. She wanted something luxurious. And now, of course, she's spoiled, but then again, with the mileage they're driving, this thing might outlast her, who knows? I mean, I've seen older ones with 250 on them and they're still going okay. If you're looking for actual luxury that holds up, I would say goodbye to Mercedes-Benz. You could buy 3 of these for the price of 1 Mercedes, and then you definitely would never have to buy another car the rest of your life, because that would last for, who knows, 1,000,000 miles or more. They're an interesting vehicle. Gas mileage aside, they really are a luxury SUV. There's no arguing that. And I like the lowerness. It really handles so much better than the Lexuses are. You can't even compare how they handle. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.